Hello, welcome to my part two of my record collection video. Thanks for watching. I don't know if you saw the first one or not, but yeah, I'm just going through my record collection. And if you find this interesting, thank you. Maybe you're into music as much as me and watching videos like this, seeing what other people have for their tastes, what other records that they collect. So if you want to keep watching, you will see my next set of records. I went through A to J in my last video, so this time I'm going through K to Z. And to start it off, actually I don't have a record that starts with K, so we're going straight to L. So this is Led Zeppelin 4. This is their fourth album. Great album. Classics on it. You got this classic image here. It was on a lot of t-shirts. I had the t-shirt when I was in grade 8 or whatever. You got some of their biggest hits on here. You got Stairway to Heaven. To be honest, I couldn't care if I never heard that song again in my life. But I mean, you got some really good songs. I love Misty Mountain Hop, Four Sticks, Going to California, When the Levee Breaks. So side 2 is where it's at on this record. One of these bands, one of these classic records, classic bands that you're like, I couldn't care if I never heard this band again, because they're all over the place and people need to shut up about them. But I mean, you can say that about a lot of bands. So whatever, Led Zeppelin. I grew up with them. I love them. So right here you got Los Bravos. So this is an interesting record. I actually got this at a Salvation Army store for I think $1 or $2. The reason I bought this is because I used to work at a job at a store that would play the same music all day, every day, in a loop on the overhead stereo system. And every now and then they would play like a 60s, almost like a weird songs that don't normally get played on the radio kind of thing. Like it was almost like Nuggets style songs. Nuggets, I don't know if you're not familiar with Nuggets, is a series of compilation records that came out that featured very underrated and underheard hits from the 60s that didn't make it onto the charts by bands that just random psychedelic garage rock bands that didn't really get their moment in the spotlight. So the Nuggets people kind of went around and chose all these different artists and I think they made almost 10 different compilations. So this band is called Los Bravos, and one of the song on this record, the first song is called Black is Black, and which is the first name of the album, and that song would play at my store, and I remember hearing it all the time and being like, what is this song? It's so catchy, it's so cool. And I saw this record. It's in great shape. It's a picture of the guys there. Really cool picture. That's them on the back there. I was like, I'm going to buy it, I'm going to check it out, obviously. The price is right. And I did a quick little Googling of the band when I got home and I started listening to the record. Actually, the second song on here called Trapped is really cool, too. The whole album's pretty cool. I didn't really explore it that much, but anyways, I did some Googling of the band, and quite a sad story about the band, actually. I'm pretty sure, from what I remember, I haven't really looked in a while, but one of the singer in the band, his girlfriend died in a car accident, and so he was so heartbroken that he committed suicide, and then another guy in the band ended up committing suicide too, so like they just broke up the band. So anyways, bit of a downer story. I apologize, but I was kind of shocked to read that. So kind of a sad story. But anyways, Los Bravos, really cool. Black is Black. You may have heard it. You may have heard that song walking through a store one day and not realized it. So if you should check it out, YouTube it or something. Really cool, really catchy 60s song. So we're on to Low now. This is Low. If you haven't heard this band, they are a alternative rock band from the 90s. This record came out in 2005. It's called The Great Destroyers, released on Sub Pop. This music is kind of, I want to say they're an acquired taste. They're not really, it's not like something you'd hear and be like, oh my god, this is crazy, who would ever like this? It's just they have the certain type of mood you need to be in to listen to them, kind of. They have some like rockin' songs, but then they have some very slow, subdued, very downer songs. Some of their music is almost downer to the max. But when you look at the track listing on this record, there's some very angry songs on this album. but it's great. It's such great music. The singing is awesome. The playing on this album, the drums on this album is one thing that's really cool. So they don't really use a full kit um, ever really on any of the songs. Like some of the songs they're just using like a floor tom and a snare, or some songs they're just using like a cymbal and a snare or something. Like it's very weird and like. Um, Yeah, like the song, Everybody's Song. That's the name of the song. Everybody's Song. The drum beat on that is really cool. They have this thing on the cymbals called a sizzler. So you hit the cymbal and it like hisses, and it kind of like draws the sound out longer. And yeah, and another thing about this band too is their songs are very catchy. So you could have this really slow bummer of a song, but it's catchy and it gets stuck in your head. So it's weird. It's a weird album, but I mean, needless to say, the first time I heard it, it drew me to it immediately. So it may not be as an acquired taste as I thought. It just depends on the type of music you like, and also it's 2 records. I forgot about that. It comes in 2 records because some of the songs are quite long, and it's kind of a long album too, as you can see all the songs here. But this band has quite a few other albums that people are into. I don't know as much about their other albums. I actually saw them play in Halifax. They played for the Obey Convention in 2013 or 2014. So I was ecstatic to see them play. They played in an old church. It was super quiet. Everyone was sitting there listening to them. It was really cool. Really great performance by a great band. You should definitely check them out. So this is another record that I acquired from my mother, Meatloaf, Bat Out of Hell. This is a classic record. This album artwork is absolutely insane. It actually scared me when I was a kid. I remember flipping through her records and seeing it and thinking that I didn't even know what I was looking at. And then you listen to the music. If you listen to this record while just staring at this artwork, it's hilarious. I mean, the back of it is more what the music sounds like. You got Meatloaf here with some big suit and his sunglasses, and then you got the couple here. I don't know much about the band, to be honest, so these 2 might be in his band. I don't really know, to be honest. I don't know much about Meatloaf. I know the guy. I know. Oh wow, interesting. Produced, engineered, and mixed by Todd Rundgren. Wow. Maybe that's why this album's so great. I love Todd Rundgren. Okay. So to sum it up, you got Paradise by the Dashboard Light on this record. That song is, an epic of multiple proportions. You got all the different parts of the song. I know every goddamn word to that song. And then You Took the Words Right Out of My Mouth. Classic song. That song reminds me of like something from a movie, or you feel like you can see a musical in your head when that song's on. Like you can see the people on stage performing it or something. Big production, big sounds in that album, and it's mixed by Todd Rundgren. Never knew that. That's awesome. So this is a band called The Men. This is one of my favorite bands. They released this album on Sacred Bones. They've released multiple albums on Sacred Bones. They're a band from New York. This album is called Leave Home, and this was the first record I actually heard from them ever, and definitely drew me into their sound. And then they kind of went, and there's a picture of the band. Not a current picture. This guy here, the guy singing with the bass, he's not in the band anymore. He actually left the band because, as I was about to get to, this album has a very punk, noisy punk, kind of hardcore sound to it, with some weird songs. There's some weird experimentation on this album as well. A lot of the vocals are like they're yelling them, they're screaming them. You can't make out what they're saying. Then the next album they put out after this was rock and roll. It had some bit of a country sound to it, a bit of like a post-punky sound. Then they put out another album after that, same kind of sound. Then they put out one and it sounded like Bruce Springsteen or something. Like they kept changing their sound. And I mean, I love every record they put out. I mean, the last one they put out, I wasn't too crazy on. I don't dislike it, but anyways, this album, Leave Home. If you are into any kind of like modern noise rock kind of sound, punk sound, definitely check this out. There's a song on here called Think. That's awesome. I love that song. Night Landing. Actually, that one has like a electronic drum beat on it. That's a really cool one. Ladoch. That one is like a straight up uh, stoner doom song. Very doomy. Very. It's definitely the most extreme on the album. Check this album out. The Men. Something new to listen to if you have never heard of them. And all their other records. I would probably recommend other ones over this one. But if you like the sound I was describing, definitely check that one out. Thriller. What else needs to be said, you know? Also, although I will speak about the video for Thriller, when I was, I want to say, 6 or 7 years old, my mother had a VHS tape of music videos that she would tape just so she could watch them over again. And that video was on one of the tapes, followed immediately by Life is a Highway by Tom Cochrane. So I don't know why I remember the placement of the videos, but I just remember being absolutely petrified of the video for Thriller. The werewolf, first part with the werewolf always scared me. Then the part when they're in the movie theater, I would run out of the room. I would kind of be peeking around the corner. I didn't really want to get too close to the TV. Then the middle part in the theater where they're watching the movie, and then he's out on the street and he starts talking to her, and then he starts the song. Obviously, I liked that part, but I was always so wary because the next part in the graveyard was the part that scared me the most, especially when Michael Jackson himself turns into the zombie. His eyes, the part where it zooms in on his eyes, and they're as big as possible, and he's staring right into the camera. That part, I mean, it sounds funny to say I was a little child scared of Michael Jackson, but, you know, that video was amazing. I mean, I loved it, but I was so scared of it, and I just remember the ending of it, and then immediately into Life is a Highway. I just remember that transition so well. I don't know why. When I think of Life is a Highway, I still to this day kind of think of Thriller as well. Anyways, kind of went off track there. Next record, we got Static Age by the Misfits. Absolutely love this album. First time I heard it, I remember I heard it later in life. You know, I was in my early, well, not later in life, but later than some people. I feel like a lot of people hear this band the first time when they're like a teenager or something. But I heard this band for the first time when I was, I think, 22 or 23. And I couldn't believe it. I was like, what, this is the band that everyone, like I didn't know what I thought the Misfits were when I was younger. I kind of thought that they were some lame, like horror themed, cheesy band that like sounded, I don't know. But this record, I mean, obviously they went on to have different sounds over the years once Danzig left the band and stuff like that. But I love this album. I mean, the songs in this album, some of the lyrics in this one are just ridiculous, as you would know if you listen to it. Yeah, and like I said, they're horror themed. Obviously, they got a lot of horror themes still, but they're not cheesy. It's rock, it's like punk, but it has like a rock sound, and like Danzig has that like classic like Elvis type voice and stuff. I love this. I love this record. Bullet. That was the first Misfits song I ever heard. Love that song. 17 tracks on this album, and not a bad one. You know, that's saying something. It's a classic, great album. So this is Days of Future Past by the Moody Blues with the London Festival Orchestra. Great song. To be honest, I only bought this because I really like the song Nights in White Satin. I know that's kind of lame, but the artwork's really cool. I found it at a flea market. It was like $2. I was like, you know what, I'm gonna buy it. You know, I really like that song. The album doesn't have some bad songs. I mean, it does have some kind of whatever, but I just really wanted to buy it for that reason. And the Moody Blues, to be honest, have some really cool later career songs that I really like. They have some songs in the 80s that are kind of cheesy 80s pop songs, but they're really cool. So check them out if you ever want to hear something new. So we're now on to the Neil Young section of my records, and sad to say I don't have many Neil Young records, despite him being one of my top artists of all time. But here we have American Stars and Bars. Love this album. I prefer this side of it much more, but then you got the actual album cover right here, which is just ridiculous. I still like it, but it's just it's just funny. It's just, I don't know what he was thinking really when he, I feel like he decided to choose that just to be weird or something. But this album has some really good songs. He started to go into a bit of a country sound in this album, which makes sense because the album he follows up with event after this, and the next album on my list has that bit of a sound. But you got Like a Hurricane on this album, which is an absolutely incredible song. You got some guest vocals on this album, like Emmylou Harris. Will to Love, that song was recorded beside his fireplace late one night when he was like drunk and stoned, and you can hear this fire crackling in the background. I love it so much. Hey Babe, Saddle Up to Palomino, Bite the Bullet. Yeah, Nicolette Larson and Linda Ronstadt are on this album too. And I love this picture right here. That's an awesome picture of Neil Young. Great album. American Stars and Bars. Definitely not regarded as one of his best albums by, I would say, any of Neil Young's fans, any Neil Young purists. But I don't think any of them can deny that it's an absolutely great album, and would never say it's bad. Although I wouldn't be surprised if there are some out there that, you know, just breeze past it like it's just a filler album or something like that, which I disagree with 100%. Comes a Time by Neil Young. Comes a Time, actually, weirdly enough, that the song Comes a Time was one of the first Neil Young songs I heard that wasn't one of his big songs, you know, one of his big, you know, Cinnamon Girl type singles, you know, Old Man, like songs you hear on the radio. When I first started getting into Neil Young, I downloaded like a greatest hits or something like that, and it was the greatest hits, and then the next album, it was like a 2-disc thing, and the next one was like a greatest hits that weren't hits, but some of his greatest songs. I don't know who put it together really, but Comes a Time is on it, and I absolutely love that song. It's a straight up country song. I didn't even like country music that much at the time when I heard it, and I remember being like, oh, this is what good country sounds like, I guess. And the lyrics are great. And this whole album, it's like a country album, but there's some kind of rocking songs on it too. You got Lot of Love, the song Lot of Love, which was covered by Nicolette Larson. I think I'm getting that right. Yeah, Nicolette Larson. She kind of made a big hit out of it. And actually, that was one of the songs I used to play at my work all the time on the radio as well. And I remember being like, this song is awesome. It's super catchy. And then I heard the Neil Young version. I was like, wow, Neil Young wrote this, of course. It didn't even surprise me, you know, like, yeah, this is a really beautiful album. And I love the cover. I love him smiling on the front. Really nice picture. Yeah, Crazy Horse is playing with him on this album too. Great record. Love Neil. I want more of his records. I just haven't seen any, or seen any that I want, and the ones that I have seen are, you know, way too expensive for my blood. I actually got these two in Pittsburgh, when I was in Pittsburgh a few years ago, for insanely good price, so I snatched them up like the predator that I was when I was looking for them. So here you got Band on the Run by Paul McCartney and Wings. Another very famous album, obviously, and I love this album. You know, I've heard a lot of shit talked about this album over the years by different people, different critics. I love Paul McCartney's solo career. McCartney 2, and Ram. I love those albums, Ram especially. This is basically, I mean, this sounds like a Paul McCartney solo album, just bigger. You know, you got Linda on here too. Linda sings with him on Ram as well. You got Denny Lane. But this record, there's some all-time hits on it. Like, you got the classics, the songs that you hear on the radio all the time. But I absolutely love Let Me Roll It. 1985 is it's a dark, really groovy song. And I mean, Band on the Run, you know, I could never hear that song again and be okay with it. But it's still good. Bluebird's a really pretty song. Yeah, it's a great album. You know, I'm not gonna. I put it on before at parties, and everyone's like, "Oh, this album," and you know, everyone's just kind of great. No complaints, you know. So this one is a band called Play Guitar. They were from Halifax. Then they relocated to Montreal. I think it was Montreal, Toronto. And they put this album out, I think, when they were living in Montreal. It was released on Noise Records, which is a Nova Scotia-based record label run by a guy named Chad Peck, who I've known for years. I've played with him, and I've played different gigs with him in his bands and stuff. And yeah, he's put out some great stuff over the years. And actually, I'm seeing that this was recorded by Charles Austin, my buddy Charles, who recorded the Bougie Boys record, and I've recorded with him in multiple other projects. Great guy. Recorded at Echo Chamber, which is where we recorded it at. I'm going to be bluntly honest. I don't think I've listened to this record. It was given to me by a friend. I said, of course, I'll take it. You know, I didn't want to say no. I saw this band live many times. They were really great. This was released in an era when I didn't really know any other songs. When I saw them, they were playing songs that weren't on this record, and then they put this one out like a year or two later, and I wasn't really listening to them at the moment, so I didn't really check it out. I should really check it out sometime because, yeah, and like this cover, it's a really cool album cover. All the different guitars, some nice photography, trickery going on there. Yeah, I mean, I feel guilty. I haven't listened to this. It came out in 2009, so 10 years ago now, or almost 10 years ago, because it's just 2019 now. So I'm just gonna get a stretch in here. I got my boy Ringo here. Absolutely love the song "Photograph" on this album. That's one of my favorite emotional "this song does it for me" songs. I hear it and it just gives you that warm feeling, kind of sad feeling too, because it's a very sad song. And this one comes with a big booklet. It's like all this different artwork and all the different song credits are in it. It's pretty cool. Has that old smell to it. One song on this album I don't really know that well, and every time I look at the track listing and I see it, I've heard it before. I've heard it, but I don't really remember how it goes, or I don't really remember what it sounds like. But there's a song called "You're 16," and it's kind of a weird song to listen to now. I'm sure it was back then too, but they just didn't really care. Yeah, you got John Lennon on this record. You got George Harrison. You got Close Foreman, Billy Preston. I think this is one of the songs was written by Randy Newman, which is kind of interesting. Yeah, so Ringo. Probably his biggest album. He didn't really put much else out that people enjoyed. Although I thought "It Don't Come Easy" was on this record, but I think it was only on certain versions of it, maybe. But that's like my favorite Ringo song, "It Don't Come Easy." So probably one of his biggest songs. Excuse me. So I talked about the Beatles earlier. This is my other all-time favorite band. So typical, so unoriginal that those are my favorite bands. But I mean, it's like, I don't know. I don't even know what else to say. It's like these bands have albums and albums and albums worth of music that you can listen to, and it's like it all sounds. I mean, to be fair, the Rolling Stones have decades of, I don't want to say garbage, but decades of albums that I don't care to ever listen to. 80s, I don't really know much by them in the 80s. I don't really know much by them in the 90s, aside from when they just did some comeback tours and did some tours and stuff, like some live concerts. But I mean, the 60s, the early to late 60s and the early to mid 70s is the Rolling Stones' golden era. And no Rolling Stone fan will ever deny that. And they're just the gods of rock and roll, garage rock, melodies, all these different sounds. I can go back to these albums and just, it's like they're my favorites, you know. I don't know. So I got this at the flea market. It's in bad condition. The record, it plays, but it's quite scratched up. Actually, there's some really bad scratches on this side. But it's called Out of Our Heads. It's a UK compilation of singles that came out. I love the cover. I mean, and I love how Mick is all the way up here. I mean, he wasn't, you know, Brian Jones was a very big face of the band, but you know, Mick Jagger, the main singer, the guy that everyone knew, is all the way up here, just smushed up here. It's like they barely could fit him in, so he just kind of stuck his head in just at the top, you know. But this has some singles as The Last Time, Satisfaction, Mercy Mercy, Play with Fire. Some of these were covers. Actually, I think 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them are covers. Out of 12 songs, there's 13 songs. Anyways, I love this band, and these songs are classic. This is the early Stones when they were, you know, what did they call them? London's big hit makers or whatever they're called. I guess they had an album called that or something. Anyways, classic, the Stones. And I got this one as well. Actually, I was buying some records at a record fair, and I was looking through the Stones records, and the guy said, he saw me eyeing a couple, and he said, you know what? He said, I can't get rid of this one. It's just some random Stones records called Flowers. It's a compilation. He said, you buy, you know, 2 or 3, I'll throw this in for free. I was like, sure, what the hell. So it's called Flowers. It's basically like not a greatest hits, but like a bunch of singles. But there are songs that were on different albums. There's Ruby Tuesday, Let's Spend the Night Together, Lady Jane, Out of Time, Mother's Little Helper. Songs that were just from the late 60s, mid to late 60s from the band. Just a random compilation. I said, of course I'll take it, you know. It's actually in good shape. Flowers, yeah. So here is the first actual Stones record I own, Aftermath. I absolutely adore this record. Classic record. This was the U.S. pressing, I think, because the cover's a bit different from the other one, the other version. This one has like this is like the first classic Stones record in my opinion, aside from the first couple. But the first couple were just full of covers and stuff. This is like one of the first Stones albums that's just all original songs. And yeah, it's like I was in a couple bands years ago, and we would just listen to this album, and we just wanted to imitate how it sounded so bad, like the drum sound, the guitar sound, just the overall attitude of the songs, like the feeling of the songs and stuff, you know, the catchiness, the melodies. It's Not Easy, that song, that was a big song we would put on. Under My Thumb, You Got Under My Thumb, and Paint It Black, the 2 big hits on the song. Think, love that song. Think is that's one of my favorite Rolling Stones albums, or Rolling Stones songs. And that song, I remember hearing it for the first time, and it has a guitar riff that reminds me of a song off Ram by Paul McCartney called Eat at Home. So I'm assuming, because obviously this came out first, so I wonder if Paul McCartney heard the song Think and said, wow, I really love that riff, I'm going to steal it. I like to think that, at least, because there's no way he heard that. He didn't know that there's no way he didn't hear that song, right? There's no way he didn't hear that and then write his music and then say, oh, I didn't know that I was accidentally ripping off this riff, you know? So here's the Stones, their Satanic Majesty's Request. I was really happy I found this at a record fair. It's an original pressing, and it comes with the holographic cover on the front. I'm sure if you can see that well. But it has like the added thing on top. It's not actually part of the jacket. It was like glued on. This record is definitely heralded by a lot of people. Oh, I absolutely love the inside of it in here. And this is just insane. I love just opening up a record and seeing something like this, something that you can just look at and just spend a while just staring at everything in here. This record was obviously It came out after Sgt. Pepper's, and people were saying, "Oh wow, look at these guys! Look at these British rockers trying to copy the other British rockers. You know, the other one big rock band covering or trying to copy another big rock band. Blah blah blah. The Stones, look at you trying to be all psychedelic." Yeah, well, you know what? They did a pretty damn good job of it, and I think this album kicks ass. You got the song Citadel, which blew my mind when I first heard it because it's like a punk version of the Rolling Stones. And then you got some straight up psychedelic songs. She's a Rainbow, 2000 Light Years from Home, In Another Land. I love that song, In Another Land. That is Bill Wyman, the bass player, singing on this song because apparently he showed up to the studio. This is when they were recording this album. Apparently it was just a shit show. People would show up at the studio with like 10 different people all doing drugs and hanging out, and no one was getting any work done. And then one day Bill Wyman showed up. No one else was there. He didn't want to waste any time, so he recorded a song by himself called In Another Land. And in the last like 10 seconds of the song, all you hear is someone snoring. And it's apparently Bill Wyman. He fell asleep one night at the studio, and they recorded him sleeping. And I'm assuming he was fine with it, but they added it to the end of his song. It's really funny. I remember listening to it with headphones one day, and it kind of weirded me out. I was like, whoa, what is this sound in my ear? It sounded like a dog like growling or something, but it was him snoring. So classic album. And then we got another Rolling Stones album. So I was talking about earlier about the Stones 80s stuff, which I said is probably garbage. I got this record. My grandmother had some records. She said, take whatever you want. I grabbed this because it's the Stones, and I just wanted to grab it. I think it's hilarious, the album cover. It's so colorful, the back of it. I don't think I know anything on this album. It's called Dirty Work. I definitely know the title. I might know some of the songs that maybe they were played on the radio, but I don't know this era of the Stones that well. And yeah, I don't really care to. It has the original lineup, plus you got Ronnie Wood here. I like Ronnie Wood. I don't like him as much as Brian Jones or Mick Taylor, but he was in the Faces, he wasn't in the Small Faces, he was in the Faces, a classic rock band. I don't own any of their records, but I absolutely love them. So this record, it took me a long time to find this one. I could not find it anywhere. I really wanted it at one point. I finally found it. It's Roxy Music by Roxy Music. I really, really, really liked this album when I first heard it. I had never heard of this band before, ever. Here's some pictures of the band in the front here. This album is crazy. It's like the first, I don't even know what you call it. It's they call it art rock, I guess, on Wikipedia. If you look up Roxy Music, art rock. They're like jazzy. Brian Eno was in the band. That's him right there. He played synth, and he made all these weird sounds. So here's Brian Ferry right there, the singer. There's I think that's the guitar player, and he looks a lot like a young Ozzy Osbourne right there. I always thought that. And then you got, it's just they're a great band. And the song "If There Is Something" was the one song I heard by them that absolutely blew me away. And Ladytron, that's another great song. The first song on this album, named Remake Remodel, has got to be, in my opinion, one of the top album opening tracks of all time. It'll kick your ass in 5 different ways. The band sounds like they're literally just having a party and going all out, and everyone's just giving it their all. You can literally hear why every musician in this band is awesome in this song, because they all have their moment to shine. Love this album. I finally found it at a record fair after years of searching, and I was really stoked to finally find it. This record actually was the first Roxy Music album I bought because I couldn't find this one. This is Avalon. I got this in Montreal. I think I got it for like $3 or $4. It has the song More Than This on it, which is probably one of their biggest 80s songs. I just wanted to buy it because it was the only thing there, and I was like, hey, it's cheap. I don't give a shit. I don't really know the album that well. Avalon, Roxy Music. This is a record that I got given to me from my grandmother. Roy Orbison collection, as advertised on TV and radio, same as the CCR one from my other video. I absolutely love Roy Orbison. I think he's got to be probably one of the best singers, one of my favorite singers of all time. Probably top 3, maybe top 2. Absolutely, his music is like hauntingly sad and hauntingly gorgeous. His voice, the song "In Dreams," is like it's like something from literally something from a dream, basically. And if you've ever seen the movie Blue Velvet by David Lynch, you will know what I'm talking about when I say that song is in that movie in a very bizarre and creepy scene. This movie, this guy in a way almost kind of, it almost like that scene almost made all Roy Orbison music make me think of David Lynch in a way. Yeah, I mean, and he went on to be in the Traveling Wilburys, so that's obviously widely known knowledge, and I really like that group as well, for obvious reasons. So on to our next record, we have Spiderland by Slint. The wear and tear here. I actually had this in my backpack one time and I bent it, so I'm kind of annoyed about that. But so this is a band from the States. They were they were an American band in the early '90s. This was released on Touch and Go, pretty big indie label in the '90s. This album, I remember hearing the last song on this album called "Good Morning Captain." It was on the soundtrack to the movie Kids. I don't suggest you go out and watch that movie. If you already have seen it, good for you. You know, if you enjoyed it, right on. It's a very fucked up movie. It's good. It's a good movie, but I don't really suggest it to anyone because it's not really an easy watching movie. But other than that, it was a great soundtrack. The soundtrack of the movie is amazing, and I remember hearing that as the song on the soundtrack and being like, who the living hell is this band? This band is amazing. This song is amazing. And I seeked out this record. I seeked out the album, and everyone kind of like spoke about this band online in almost like hush hush terms. Almost like, oh, you know, this is a secret band. It's like there's so much mystery involved in them. And actually, a couple years ago, a documentary came out about them, and it's online. I think it's on YouTube. And I watched it, and it's weird. It's like they were young. They were like 18 or 19. And they were just putting out this very weird, creepy music. There's a song on here called Nosferatu Man, Breadcrumb Trail. It's like the music's very slow, and the album is called Spiderland, and I feel like perfectly sums up the creepy, crawly guitar sounds going on in this music, in this album. The vocals are like, you can barely hear them sometimes. He's like talking and whispering. It's like some of the songs are instrumental. It's weird album, and the album, of course, the album cover is just them in like a quarry. It's weird. They're all like, they look happy, but then in the documentary, like, it's so weird. Like it's one of those things where you see a band and then you hear the music and you're like, it doesn't add up. Like they're these like young kids who like just played outside and like skateboarded and I guess the singer here, this guy, he was kind of like a very introverted kind of like artist type dude, but the rest of them, like one of them is like kind of like a typical like athletic bro type dude, if that's the way for lack of a better word, and they're like hanging out in like a record store, and like they just seem like some high school kids or something, just hanging out, having fun, and then you listen to the music and it's like, this is like something that you'd hear like late at night in like a creepy house or something. Like, I don't know. It's weird. It's like something you listen to by candlelight or something. I don't know how else to describe it, I guess. But anyways, that's Spiderland. Check it out if you want to hear something you may have never heard before. It's very different music, and I haven't listened to it in a while, so I actually may check it out again soon. So this is Raw Power by Iggy and the Stooges, is what is labeled on the back. It's by the Stooges. I don't think they ever really went by Iggy and the Stooges. Maybe they did. I don't know. This is hands down one of my top albums of all time. This album is like being beat up by music. Like, it's absolutely balls to the walls. Just the guitar, the whole album is mixed, so it's louder than it should be, but it doesn't like destroy your speakers. It doesn't sound blown out. It does, but in the best way. It's just the guitar, the vocals, the drums, everything in this album is designed to like make you feel like you're literally in the same room as the band when they're recording and playing. And the songs are just so badass. Like, every song on this album there's only 8 songs on this album, and every single one is just absolutely killer. Iggy Pop, one of the top frontmen, one of the top singers, one of the top guys. This and the Stooges. I mean, they have Funhouse and they have the self-titled album. I absolutely love the Stooges. Yeah, this album is insane. The only issue I have with this record is it is the David Bowie mix, which is the original mix. This is the original mix. Iggy Pop did a remix of this album in 1997. It's called the 1997 Iggy Pop remix, and that's the version I heard for the first time. I had it on my iPod, and I had it on my computer, and it was insane. I had to turn my speakers down every time I put it on because it was so loud, but I loved it. But then I bought this record, and I didn't realize David Bowie was the original person who mixed it, and I didn't realize how it was mixed. So I got home and I put it on, and some songs, like the song "Gimme Danger," one of my favorite songs on the record, all the instruments are mixed into one speaker, are panned to one, and the vocals are panned to another. So I put it on, and I'm like listening to it, and I'm like, why does this sound so fucked up? And I got right up close, and I was like, oh, Iggy is coming out of the left speaker, and the guitars, the bass, and the drums are coming out of the right. And it sounded like absolute dog shit. I hate to say it. And so this record, I mean, I can put it on and listen to it, but it's like I might as well just load up the album on Spotify or on YouTube and listen to it if I want to listen to it, because the most current versions online are the remix, because I think everyone realized, hey, David Bowie, great artist. Maybe you didn't, maybe you needed to learn a thing or two about mixing before you mixed this bad boy, because this album deserves to be heard in the right way. Absolutely. I think this is the final record I have that I inherited from my mother. This is Supertramp, Breakfast in America. I remember this album so well as a kid. This album cover, there's a picture of them on the back here, all having some breakfast. Yeah, this album's classic. This band's classic. I love all the songs on this. I remember hearing them. This is a childhood album for me. Logical Song, Goodbye Stranger, Take the Long Way Home, Breakfast in America, Classic album. Really like it. Know all the words. Really great stuff. This is the first record by Tears for Fears called The Hurting. I got really into this band probably like 5 or 6 years ago, and I didn't know, I knew the singles, but I didn't know much else. And a friend actually gave this record to me, and I couldn't believe the quality of songs on this record. I mean, these guys were the real deal, and I absolutely love them. I can still throw this record on and just love it as much as I did back then. It has, 2 of their biggest songs. It has Mad World, they're one of their big early hit singles, and Pale Shelter, which I absolutely love that song. And then the first song, The Hurting, the title track of the record, the drumming in that song, it has like a really like broken up drum beat, but it's amazing. And there's a song on here called Ideas as Opiates, and the vocal harmony in that song is absolutely crazy. I remember hearing it and being like, how is he even singing that? Like, it's like he goes up and down, and like high as he can go, and then super low, and it sounds weird me describing it, but it's insane. It's like a really vocally driven song. And then you got their big hit album here, Songs from the Big Chair. Absolutely love this album too. Their 2 biggest songs on here, Shout and Everybody Wants to Rule the World. Head Over Heels, absolutely love that song. The Working Hour is a really good one too. Good album. Really like these guys. Their music, you know, I feel like it stays relevant as even as time passes. You know, they were a big '80s band, but people are still, you know, listening to them nowadays and being like, hey, these guys are still as relevant as ever. Great band. Even if their styles have gone a little out of style, you know, the haircuts and stuff like that. Actually, what am I talking about? People still have hair like that nowadays. So this is a band called Tongue and Death Grip. This record was given to me by the guy in the band. His name's Craig. He was a buddy of mine. I played in a band with them a couple years ago. This is a great album, but these guys are from Halifax. They used to play a lot. They used to be one of the biggest hot tickets in the city. Actually, at one point. I don't know much. They released a 7-inch record, and I knew a lot of the songs on that. Then this one came out, and I didn't know as many. There's a song in here called Scientology, which is one of their biggest songs. They're like a really fast punk band. Fast, like, well, they're punk, but they're like a power poppy kind of. The guitar's super fast. Like, Craig's a really fast guitar like picker, so he like plays these like really fast little leads and like almost like cherry picking type leads and stuff like that. So it's almost like, I don't want to say it's like almost like rockabilly, because it's not. The music is not rockabilly at all, but the guitar playing is almost like. If you check them out, Tongue and Death Grip, you'll see what I'm talking about. The guitar playing is insane. The drumming is awesome. The melodies, Craig's a great singer, and he does these really good power pop melodies on this. Great stuff. The album was called Chula Vista, and it came out on P Trash, which is a European punk label. So yeah, check them out. And my last two here, I'm just gonna actually just do these ones in the same. So we got the Outlaw Waylon Jennings Greatest Hits, and we got this one here, which is Waylon Jennings Country Music Time Life Records. I think this was another one of those. I got both of these from her grandmother. Both of these were, I think this one was actually like one of those TV things. Anyways. Don't know much songs on this one, but this one, obviously, this is the Greatest Hits. I think everyone knows this one. This is like a very famous one, and it has, you know, Honky Tonk Heroes. Are You Sure Hank Done It This Way? Waylon, you know, it's actually missing one of my favorite Waylon Jennings songs, but anyways, Waylon Jennings. Not much needs to be said about this guy. If you know old country, you know him. He was one of the all-time greats. The final one I have here, it's by a band called York Redoubt. So they're from Halifax. This was released on Noise Records as well as the Play Guitar record I showed you earlier. This was a really, really good record. It still is. When it came out, it took everyone by surprise. It was one of those records that everyone was kind of talking about. It's like a really good poppy indie record. Kind of like weird time signatures, weird melodies, weird sounds going on in this one. Not something I'd really put on nowadays because I don't really enjoy that type of music as much now, but when it came out, I absolutely adored it, and there are definitely some songs on here that I still like. I definitely would say that I still like. But this is York Redoubt. I don't know how easy it would be to even find this record nowadays. You'd probably find it online, although I don't even know if they have their music up online anymore on like a Bandcamp or anything. Maybe. But this is York Redoubt. That was my final record of my collection. I do have some 7-inch records as well. I figured I wouldn't bother with those because I don't really have that many. I think I have less, maybe 10. But anyways, I figured I'd do my record collection because those are the main records those are the only records that I've really collected over the past 10 years. Doesn't seem like a lot compared to some people. There's some people that obviously have shelves and shelves and shelves, but I don't really consider myself that much of a collector. And there's obviously dozens and dozens and dozens of records that I would still love to have in my collection. mainly lots of Neil Young records, a few Clash records, a few new records that came out this year and the year before that I haven't been able to find anywhere but would love to have, because the past few years have been great for new records coming out. Tons of new bands out there that I love. So yeah, that's my record collection. I just want to say thanks for watching. And yeah, that's it. See you later.